Chapter 41. Breaking Through. The peak of the first level of Sword Intent. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 41. Breaking Through. The peak of the first level of Sword Intent. Hiss, the surrounding people all gasped. Everything in front of them was too dreamlike. On one side was an expert at the 6th level of the nascent soul realm who was the Grand Elder of the roaming dragon pavilion. On the other side was a white-robed swordsman at the 3rd level of the nascent soul realm. The difference between the three realms made everyone think that the one who lost would definitely be the white-robed swordsman. However, the truth slapped them all in their faces. The expert at the 6th level of the nascent soul realm was defeated. The difference between the 3rd level of the nascent soul realm and the 6th level of the nascent soul realm was enormous. Even the 1st level was extremely difficult to reach, let alone the 3rd level. It was simply outrageous. Countless people were shocked. When they looked at the white-robed swordsman, their eyes couldn't help but carry a trace of deep fear. I lost. Fan Taishan, who had regained his composure, appeared to be in a rather sorry state. His hair was disheveled like a beggar on the roadside. No matter what, Fan Taishan had never imagined that he would be defeated by a person who was 3 levels lower than him. With just this bit of strength, you dared to protect him. If I were on the same level as you, I would kill you like a dog. Xian Yi coldly glanced at Fan Taishan, then ignored him. Instead, he shifted his gaze to Grand Elder Yang, who was trembling. Although he had defeated Fan Taishan, it was not possible to kill him. Defeating a 6th nascent soul cultivator was completely different than killing a 6th level nascent soul cultivator. The giant pylon sword was the most powerful sword skill Xian Yi could use. He could defeat Fan Taishan, but it was unrealistic to think about killing him. Xian Yi's words were rooted in everyone's minds. That's right. He had defeated Fan Taishan. If he were at the same level, then the white-robed swordsman would probably not need to use a second sword strike if he wanted to kill Fan Taishan, right? Although these words were arrogant, they were the truth. It was the Grand Elder Yang. At this moment, his entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. He knew very well what Fan Taishan's defeat meant to him. I am of the Endless Gate. Grand Elder Yang had originally wanted to use his status in the Endless Gate, but Xian Yi's eyes told him that no matter what he said, it would be useless to bring up his background. The killing intent had already risen, so how could it be so easy to disperse it? Xian Yi never gave in to his enemies. Even to Fan Taihang, who was from one of the top 10 sects, he wouldn't have just defeated him if he could kill him. The two swords took action and everyone immediately understood, Grand Elder Yang and the little girl of the Endless Gate were the targets. At this point, heaven and earth were completely quiet. Everyone looked at Xian Yi with fear. This was definitely a vicious person. Even though he knew the other party's background was of the Endless Gate, he still did not forgive them. Even when facing the Grand Elder of one of the 10 great sects, the other party didn't show the slightest mercy. It was a pity that he was strong enough. Even though the white-robed swordsman could defeat him, he was unable to kill him. Everyone was certain that if the white-robed swordsman possessed the strength to kill Fan Taishan would probably be in the same position as Grand Elder Yang. Even though Fan Taishan was standing behind him, he was someone belonging to one of the 10 great sects of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. This was a master who was not afraid of neither the heavens nor the earth. Heaven and earth once again calmed down. Everyone began to focus on comprehending the Sword Intent Peak. Xian Yi was no exception. This Sword Intent Peak was also of great help to him. Time passed. 2 days had already passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 days, the people around the Sword Intent Peak came and went. However, most sword cultivators did not choose to leave. Most of the people who left were not sword cultivators. To them, rather than wasting their time on this illusory sword intent, they might as well go to the other areas within the Purple Moon's secret realm and stroll around. If they were lucky, they might even be able to obtain some treasures. As for why the sword cultivators did not leave, it was easy to understand. To a sword cultivator, there was no treasure more important than the intent of the sword Tao. If they could comprehend the embryonic form of sword intent from the sword intent peak, it would be comparable to any great treasures. In 2 days, apart from comprehending sword intent, Xian Yi did not forget to teach Lin Jin. With the presence of Xian Yi, a master who had comprehended sword intent, Lin Jin could be said to be twice as successful if she wanted to comprehend the embryonic form of sword intent. Furthermore, during the process of teaching Lin Jin, Xian Yi was surprised to discover that Lin Jin has a high affinity with sword Tao. It was terrifyingly high. In less than 4 hours, she had comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent. 4 hours. Even with Xian Yi's teachings, this was a bit terrifying. One had to know that even Gue Yi, who had a natural talent of 197 points, had spent quite a bit of time under Xian Yi's guidance in order to comprehend the embryonic form of sword intent. Lin Jin had only used 4 hours. Her comprehension of the sword Tao was stronger than Gue Yi. With the aid of the embryonic form of sword intent, Lin Jin's strength had undergone a transformation of heaven and earth. Xian Yi had originally thought that the person who he placed the most hope of helping him complete his mission would be Gue Yi. Now, it seemed that might not be the case anymore. Within the 2 days, Lin Jin's harvest was huge. Xian Yi's harvest was not small either. Within the 2 days, Xian Yi had already raised his sword intent to the peak of the first level. The increase in sword intent had greatly changed Xian Yi's strength. Originally, Xian Yi had been able to defeat Fan Taishang, but he was unable to kill him. But now, Xian Yi, who had already comprehended the peak of the first level of sword intent, was 90.9% certain that he would be able to kill Fan Taishang. After Xian Yi comprehended the peak of the first level of sword intent, he immediately looked around and tried to find Fan Taishang. Unfortunately, Fan Taishang had already left this area. You ran fast. Xian Yi snorted coldly as he began to check his mission. Side mission: possess a disciple with an aptitude of over 200 points. Mission reward: raise the host's cultivation level by 1 level and comprehend the peak of the second level of sword intent. As expected, the mission reward has changed. The corner of Xian Yi's mouth hooked into a smile, as he had expected. The mission rewards were not the same. As his strength increased, it would change. This was normal. Otherwise, if Xian Yi relied on his comprehension ability to comprehend the second level of sword intent in the future, wouldn't the so-called mission reward be redundant? If Xian Yi had thought of this, the system had naturally thought of it too. Isn't there news that the Divine Refining Pagoda has appeared? Let's go take a look. What about you two? Do you want to stay with me? Chapter 42. That vicious person finally left. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 42. That vicious person finally left. Xian Yi and Lin Jin. One of them had comprehended the peak of the first level of sword intent, while the other had successfully comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent. It was no longer beneficial for them to continue staying at the sword intent peak. However, the rest of them hadn't gained much in these 2 days. Therefore, Xian Yi asked. At present, although everyone was led by him, Xian Yi would not force others to follow him. Everyone had their own choices. If they were willing to continue following him, Xian Yi wouldn't mind bringing them along. If they weren't willing, Xian Yi wouldn't force him. We'll follow Elder Xian. Wang Tao and Lu Ying said without hesitation. During these 2 days, the two of them did not gain much from the sword intent peak. Instead of wasting time here, it would be better to continue following Elder Xian. Me too. Lin Jin's friend Zixuan also said. Compared to Sword in Tent Peak, she seemed to be more interested in the Divine Refining Pagoda. The Divine Refining Pagoda. One of the 5 great opportunities within the Purple Moon's secret realm. Just like the Sword in Tent Peak. However, the opportunity at the Sword in Tent Peak was only a great attraction to sword cultivators, not to ordinary cultivators. The Divine Refining Pagoda was different. The Divine Refining Pagoda was extremely attractive to all cultivators who entered the Purple Moon's secret realm. That vicious person has finally left. The departure of Xian Yi and the others caused many people below the Sword in Tent Peak to sigh in relief. Although Xian Yi did not seem to be someone who would slaughter the innocent, the scene of Grand Elder Yang and his granddaughter being killed by force, regardless of their background, was still imprinted in many people's hearts. The existence of Xian Yi caused countless people to feel indescribable pressure. It filled their hearts, so much so that when Xian Yi was still there, even though there were many people under the Sword in Tent Peak, disputes were kept to a minimum out of fear that they would disturb that vicious person. Now that Xian Yi had left, the indescribable pressure had also dissipated. The surrounding Sword in Tent Peak once again returned to a bustling scene. However, what Xian Yi did not expect was that just as he and Lin Jin and the others left, a familiar person arrived at Sword in Tent Peak. Moreover, this familiar person wasn't someone else. It was one of Xian Yi's 3 disciples, Guo Yi. At this moment, she was not alone. Beside her were 3 disciples of the Profound Sword Sect, all of them inner disciples. Almost all of the Profound Sword Sect's inner disciples were at the Qi Foundation realm. On the other hand, Guo Yi had become the weakest among the 4. Although she was comparable to the Qi Foundation realm, the weakest among the 3 was at the peak of the level of the 3rd Qi Foundation realm. However, even though their strength was the weakest among the group, Guo Yi was vaguely respected in this group. This was without a doubt because Guo Yi's master was an elder of the Profound Sword Sect. Furthermore, in the Profound Sword Sect, her master was the most special elder, Xian Yi, who was comparable to the vice sect masters. With this point, Guo Yi's position was high with the 4 of them. Kid. Hand over the Nexus Spirit Root. In front of Guo Yi and the others was an ugly youth who was frantically fleeing. The reason Guo Yi and the others had appeared here was that this ugly young man had snatched the Nexus Spirit Root that the 4 of them had painstakingly dug out. The Nexus Spirit Root was a relatively common type of spirit root, belonging to the 2nd rank. To some experts above the Soul Expansion realm, this spiritual root could not be considered precious. However, to Guo Yi and the others who were only at the Qi Foundation realm, they could be considered extremely precious. Damn it. Faced with the pursuit of the 4 of them, it wasn't long before they would be caught up. The ugly young man also had an anxious expression on his face. However, this wisp of anxiety was quickly replaced by ecstasy. Elder Fan. The reason why the ugly young man turned his worries into joy was also very simple. Because under the Sword in Tent Peak, he saw familiar faces among the crowd. The elders of his sect. Without saying another word, the ugly young man rushed towards Elder Fan's Earth Fong Quan. As he ran, he didn't forget to shout for help. Although Elder Fan was only an outer sect elder, he was a true nascent soul expert no matter what. With him around, those 4 fellows behind him would never be able to do anything to him. When Elder Fan heard someone calling him, he heard his reputation and saw the ugly young man being chased by Guo Yi and the others. He moved and appeared in front of the ugly young man. Although he didn't know this ugly young man, he knew that the clothes he wore were the clothing of his sect's disciples. Not good. The appearance of Elder Fan made Guo Yi and the others look rather ugly. Damn it. One of the Profound Sword Sect disciples cursed, his voice filled with unwillingness. Seeing that he was about to catch up with that ugly young man and snatch back the Moon Pivotal Spirit Root, who would have thought that that person had some dog's hit luck. There was a sect elder here. The appearance of Elder Fan could be said to have eliminated the suspense in this battle for the Nexus Spirit Root. Although it was the other party who snatched their belongings, they were not fools, including Guei. Within the Purple Moon's secret realm, it did not matter if someone were more reasonable, it depended entirely on whose fist was bigger. Let's go. Seeing that the opponent's backer had arrived, the strongest senior brother among the four sighed and turned around to leave with Guei and the others. However, the moment he turned around, Elder Fan stopped him. Wait. The expressions of Guei and the others became even uglier. The other party was a soul expansion realm expert, and the strongest among them was only at the 5th level of the Qi Foundation realm. If they moved, the four of them would probably not be able to withstand a single move with Elder Fan. If Elder Fan made a move against the four of them, it was likely that the odds would be too bad. Senior, he's the one who stole the Nexus Spirit Root from us. Now that Senior has appeared, the four of us will admit defeat. There's no need to kill. The one who spoke was the strongest of the four. With Elder Fan as his great supporter, wouldn't he be able to bring back all the anger he had suffered when he was being chased by the four of them? Since it's not in your hands, what right do you have to say it's yours? Return the Nexus Spirit Root to them. Elder Fan's voice slowly rang out. Alright, the ugly young man said directly, but soon, he realized something was wrong. Elder Fan, you. The ugly young man thought he had heard wrong. Return the Nexus Spirit Root to them. What a joke. This was something he had managed to snatch from Guei and the others with great difficulty. Chapter 43. Did you not hear that I told you to return it to them? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 43. Did you not hear that I told you to return it to them? I asked you to return the things to them, did you not hear me? Elder Fan's voice was low, and he stared coldly at the ugly young man beside him. A pressure enveloped him. At that moment, it wasn't just the ugly young man who was dumbstruck. Guei and the others were also dumbfounded. Elder Fan's words completely exceeded their expectations. Not only did Elder Fan not make things difficult for them, he even asked the ugly young man to return the Nexus Spirit Root to them. The ugly youth did not understand, and Guei and the others were unable to understand either. On the other hand, quite a few people in the surroundings only thought for a moment when they saw the clothes that Guei and the others wore. They seemed to understand something. Although the ugly young man was very unwilling, he still did not dare to disobey Elder Fan's words. He returned the Spirit Root to Guei and the others with an expression of unwillingness. As for Elder Fan, he clasped his fist at Guei and the others apologetically before leaving with the ugly young man. Elder Fan, why? The ugly young man asked after they were far away from Guei and the others. His voice was filled with unwillingness and confusion. He needed an answer. Elder Fan glanced at him and tossed a recording crystal at him without a word. What was recorded on the crystal was the battle between Xian Yi and Fan Taishang, as well as the killing of Grand Elder Yang and his granddaughter. After he viewed it, Elder Fan snorted coldly. Do you understand now? Why I asked you to return the items to them? By the way, that vicious person just left this place. He went to the Divine Refining area. The Divine Refining Tower is not far from this place. You have to be lucky. You're lucky that you've arrived here a little late. Otherwise, if that vicious person had seen you robbing his disciples, do you think you would still be alive? Elder Fan said unhappily. After watching the replay on the recording crystal, the unwillingness on the ugly youth's face had long since disappeared. Instead, his face contained lingering fear. After seeing the recording on the crystal, the ugly youth finally understood why Elder Fan had asked him to return the Nexus Spirit Root to the four of them. He didn't have the guts to further the subject. Just as Elder Fan had said, the ugly young man felt fortunate. Fortunately, he arrived a bit late. If he were to be hit by that vicious person displayed on the screen, the consequences would be unimaginable. What exactly is going on? Looking at Elder Fan and the ugly young man, Guei and the others were still dumbfounded. The four of them were even more dumbfounded. Because they soon discovered it. There were many strange people around. Wherever they were, others would immediately scatter. In addition, there was fear and caution in their eyes. This made the four of them even more confused. It was not difficult to understand that fear of experts was the heavenly nature of this world. But the problem was the most terrified people, the ones furthest away from them. Their strength was far above the four of them, and there was no lack of experts at the nascent soul realm. However, without exception, after the four of them approached, they ran away immediately. "Senior, what exactly is going on? How do you feel?" "What?" He couldn't understand. The strongest senior brother of the Profound Sword sect finally couldn't help but ask a nascent soul elder. This old man didn't leave Guei's group like the others. The old man was not only a nascent soul expert, he was one of the stronger nascent soul experts. With his strength, he wouldn't be too scared of the white-robed swordsman. Moreover, the white-robed swordsman himself had already left. The old man was merely afraid of the white-robed swordsman himself. As for the disciples of his sect, they were not him, so why would he be afraid? The old man, who was currently comprehending the embryonic form of sword intent, slightly opened his eyes when he heard this. "What they're afraid of is not the four of you. It's just an elder of your sect." The old man lightly laughed, with a hint of playfulness. "Earlier, a senior from your sect was quite impressive here. He defeated Grandmaster Fan of the Roaming Dragon Pavilion and the Endless Gates Grand Elder Yang. TSK, what they're afraid of is only that elder of your sect, who has just left a short time ago, with the other four. Defeated Fan Taisheng. Grand Elder Yang. They didn't know the two of them. The Profound Sword sect, where the four of them were from, had some strength in Jinan province. However, in the entire Heavenly Wind Kingdom, it was insignificant. However, even though they didn't know who Fan Taisheng and Grand Elder Yang were, they weren't unfamiliar with the Roaming Dragon Pavilion and Endless Gate. Endless Gate, of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom, was an extremely powerful sect. Although it wasn't one of the 10 great sects, it was one of the most powerful sections. As for the Roaming Dragon Pavilion, it was even more impressive. Unlike the Endless Gate, the Roaming Dragon Pavilion was one of Heavenly Wind Kingdom's 10 sections. One of the two people that the old man spoke of was Grand Elder Yang. The Endless Gate probably had quite a few experts at his level. They were probably all of the nascent soul realm, and they were also Endless Gate Grand Elders. They were existences at the low nascent soul realm and above, and they were even more powerful than their sect head. Grand Master Fan was a Grand Elder of the Roaming Dragon Pavilion, one of the top 10 sects. The old man's reply caused the four of them to be even more dumbfounded. That was because the four of them had no idea who in the Profound Sword sect could defeat or even kill Fan Taisheng and Grand Elder Yang. Not to mention the Vice.Sect Master, even the Sect Master Jian Nantian could not do so. Although Jian Nantian of Profound Sword sect was strong, he was only at the peak of the second level of the nascent soul realm. He was not even at the third level of the nascent soul realm. However, Grand Elder Yang and Grand Monarch Fan were the Endless Gates Grand Elder and the Grand Elder of the Roaming Dragon Pavilion respectively. How could they be weak? They were far more powerful than third-level nascent soul experts. But these two terrifying existences were actually defeated by an elder of their Profound Sword sect. This was too outrageous. It was so ridiculous that the four of them were suspicious. Was this old man mistaken for someone else? In truth, the man who had defeated Fan Taiheng and killed Grand Elder Yang probably wasn't from the Profound Sword sect, right? Senior, what did the person who defeated Fan Taisheng and then killed Grand Elder Yang look like? Guei was lost in thought. She had already vaguely guessed who the old man was talking about. Who in the Profound Sword sect was most likely to do this? Other than her master Xian Yi, who else could it be? The old man glanced at her again. He pointed his hand at her, and then in the air, spiritual power gathered, quickly condensing into a portrait. Chapter 44. Divine Refining Pagoda. Stone Steel Ranking. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 44. Divine Refining Pagoda. Stone Steel Ranking. He was dressed in white, and he held a jade-like sword in his hand. He was like a peerless sword immortal. This person was Xian Yi. Elder Xian. It's Elder Xian. Master. As soon as his image appeared, the four of them were stunned. They were extremely familiar with this person. Wasn't he the heavenly elder of their profound sword sect, Elder Xian, Guiyi's master, Xian Yi? How was that possible? The first reaction of the other three profound sword sect disciples was disbelief. Elder Xian and the others knew each other, but how could Elder Xian's strength be so great? Defeating Grandmaster Fan of the Roaming Dragon Pavilion. Killing Endless Gate's Grand Elder Yang. This was something that even the sect master could not do. Elder Xian. It wasn't that the three of them didn't believe it. This matter was simply too outrageous. If that person had been defeated and killed, it would be fine if he were an ordinary nascent soul expert, but who were those two? One was the Grand Elder of the Endless Gate, while the other was someone of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom's 10 great sections. The Grand Elder of the Roaming Dragon Pavilion was a powerful nascent soul expert. He was a figure standing at the top of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom's pyramid. Next, Guiyi did not stop at the Sword Intent Peak. Instead, she quickly left after asking about Xian Yi's whereabouts. Although Sword Intent Peak was extremely attractive to sword cultivators, its so-called attraction was to sword cultivators who did not comprehend the embryonic form of sword intent. To sword cultivators who had already comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent, Guiyi's attraction was not that great at this moment. In comparison, the Divine Refining Pagoda was even more attractive to Guiyi at this moment. Not to mention that her master was also there. Guiyi wanted to meet her master earlier. No matter how much of a genius Guiyi was, she was still a young girl who had never gone alone into the world. After she entered the Purple Moon's secret realm, she was constantly on edge. Although there were a few senior brothers by her side, they did not give her any sense of security. Only her master. Only staying by her master's side would make her feel the most at ease. Junior Sister Guiyi, this Purple Moon's secret realm is extremely dangerous. Why don't you wait here for us for 2 days before we head to the Divine Refining Pagoda together? The strongest senior brother of the Profound Sword sect said worriedly. No, senior brothers. I've already comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent. This sword intent peak is no longer very useful to me. Although this Purple Moon's secret realm is dangerous, as long as I'm careful, I should be fine. Then junior sister, be careful. Guiyi left and went on the journey of searching for a master by herself. The Divine Refining Pagoda, a tower that seemed to pierce through the sky, was discovered more than 2,000 years ago. Each time the Purple Moon's secret realm opened, it would appear. Furthermore, the location of the Divine Refining Pagoda was not fixed, but rather random. Every time the Purple Moon's secret realm was opened, the Divine Refining Pagoda would appear at a random spot in the secret realm. The Divine Refining Pagoda. Containing a total of 99 levels. As long as he could ascend the first level, he would be rewarded accordingly. On the other hand, the higher the number of floors ascended, the greater the rewards. According to rumors, if one were to ascend to the top, one would be able to obtain the inheritance of a mighty figure who had stepped into the king realm and his life-long treasures. Some people believed this, while others didn't. Whether they believed it or not, even if it was true, who could ascend the 99th floor? In the thousands of years since Purple Moon's secret realm first, no one had been able to reach the top. At present, someone was only able to ascend to the 73rd floor. What Divine Refining Pagoda took into account was combat strength. A person's realm was unrelated. The divine refining pagoda would arrange opposition according to the level of the person who was ascending the pagoda. Therefore, no matter how high one's cultivation level was, they didn't have any advantage in the divine refining pagoda. High cultivation levels meant that the opponents you encountered in the pagoda would be stronger. The first 30 levels of the divine refining pagoda wasn't particularly difficult. Anyone with a bit of genius and some talent would be able to reach the 30th level. The hard part was after the 30th level. From the 31st level, the difficulty of each level would increase exponentially. For example, before the 30th level, the opponents you encountered might all be at the same level. However, after the 30th level, your opponent would no longer be at the same level as you. If you were not invincible at the same level or could not battle across realms, then the 30th level would be your final point. It would be wishful thinking to ascend another level. Of course, the more difficult it was, the more generous the rewards would be. From the 31st floor, every time a person ascended the tower, the rewards they would receive would be even more generous. When the 5 of them arrived at the pagoda, there was already a sea of people around it. It was even more exaggerated than under the Sword in Tent Peak. After all, Sword in Tent Peak was extremely attractive to sword cultivators, and it was not as attractive to other martial cultivators. The divine refining pagoda was different. It was extremely attractive to all martial artists who entered the Purple Moon's secret realm. Whether you were a sword cultivator, a spear cultivator, or a zither cultivator. Master, what is the stone tablet next to the divine refining pagoda? A treasure. Lin Jin pointed at a huge stone tablet next to the divine refining pagoda and asked. On this plain, apart from a huge tower, there was also a similarly huge stone stele beside it. The stone tablet was filled with names. However, Lin Jin did not know any of these names. She had never even heard of them before. In reality, not to mention Lin Jin, Xian Yi, and even the majority of the people under the divine refining pagoda were completely unfamiliar with the densely packed names on the stone stele. However, although they didn't recognize any of the stone steles, there were quite a few people who knew the origins of the stone stele. This stele is with the divine refining pagoda. The person who spoke was not Xian Yi. Instead, he was a young man in brocade robes not far from Xian Yi and the others. He had an extraordinary bearing, and a precious sword was pinned at his waist. There was a trace of admiration in his gaze towards Lin Jin. Seeing Lin Jin, Zixuan and the others' gazes, he revealed a smile that he thought was handsome and continued to explain to them. This divine refining pagoda is extremely mysterious. Whenever the divine refining pagoda comes into being, the stone stele will follow closely behind it. The names on the stone stele are the ones left behind by many people who ascended the pagoda during its countless years. The greater the number of floors ascended, the higher the ranking on the stone stele envied. When Zixuan heard this, she was shocked. She looked at the densely packed names and exclaimed, "How many people are there on such a large stone tablet? 100,000. The young man replied. 100,000. The existence of this divine refining pagoda is probably not just tens of thousands of years old, but probably millions of years old. I wonder how many cultivators have ascended the divine refining pagoda. Don't look at the 100,000 spots, those aren't something we can covet." Chapter 45. The Heavens Pride of the Various Continents. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 45. The Heavens Pride of the Various Continents. As if afraid that Lin Jin and the others wouldn't believe him, the young man in brocade clothes deliberately lowered his voice. Do you all know of the founder of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom? When he was young, he had suppressed countless heavenly geniuses and unrivaled figures. However, even he was unable to climb onto the stone stele. Not only was he unable to climb onto it, but he was also a whole 5 levels below the 51st level, the lowest level reached of those 100,000 people. What? The Heavenly Wind Sovereign King failed to enter the rankings. He was only able to ascend to the 46th level. Lin Jian's small mouth opened slightly, feeling somewhat incredulous. As someone of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom, Lin Jian could be said to be extremely familiar with the Heavenly Wind Monarch. She could be said to be extremely familiar with his reputation and legend. When he was young, he was invincible. He was the nightmare of the countless genius of that era heaven was proud of. Now, he was the Heavenly Wind Kingdom's sovereign king, one of the top 5 super experts in the entire Heavenly Wind Kingdom. Such a legendary figure. He couldn't even enter the 100,000th place of the Divine Refining Pagoda. And the difference was far too great. This was too exaggerated. It's not that the sovereign king is not a genius. Instead, the people on this stone tablet are too monstrous. The Divine Refining Pagoda has appeared in my Heavenly Wind Kingdom for thousands of years, and countless geniuses have ascended it in the past several thousand years. There's no lack of genius outside the Heavenly Wind Kingdom, and even outside the 9 provinces of the Hanging River. Even though it's Heaven's pride on the Azure ranking. However, apart from a few people, most of them were unable to leave their names on this stone tablet. Even those people who climbed onto the stone stele ranked very poorly on the stone stele. They were all from 90,000 years ago. The highest ranking person among them was the number 1 genius of the Mingyue family more than 300 years ago. Mingyue Shui ranked 97230 on the stone stele, and this Mingyue Shui was the 11th on the Azure ranking. Lin Jian, Zixuan, Wang Tao, and the others were so shocked that they were unable to speak. On the other hand, Xian Yi's expression remained the same. It wasn't that Xian Yi was cold or pretentious, but that he knew all of these things. Originally, he had wanted to say something, but unexpectedly, the brocade-clothed young man blocked the way and had wanted to talk to them, so he decided to be lazy and not speak. L.C. let this kid continue talking, so as not to waste his breath. What kind of person was Xian Yi? How could he not know about this young man's careful thoughts? However, Xian Yi glanced at Lin Jian beside him. His disciple was indeed as beautiful as heaven immortal. The Mingyue family. 11th. Zixuan, Wang Tao, and the others cried out. Although the Heavenly Wind Kingdom was located on the border of the Azure region, they had heard of the great powers in the Azure region and the Azure ranking. The Mingyue family was one of the top 10 major powers of the Azure region, but a colossus with a king-level figure guarding it. A genius of this level could only squeeze into the top 100,000 of the stone tablet in front of them. Seeing the shocked expressions of Lin Jian, Zixuan, and the others, the young man in brocade robes felt somewhat smug as he continued, the 11th place on the green ranking can only be ranked at 97,000 or so on this stone tablet. It can't be said that it's the genius of our Azure region. It can only be said that the origin of this Divine Refining Pagoda is too shocking. Before the southern continent, this Divine Refining Pagoda had appeared in the eastern continent, the western continent, and the northern continent. In other words, thousands or even tens of thousands of years ago, there were countless geniuses from each continent that ascended this Divine Refining Pagoda. Look carefully at the suffixes of each name on the stone tablet. Lin Jian and the others looked over. As expected. 1. Heaven Everlasting, East Province, 79th floor, Blood Moon Earth. 2. Dao Chen, East Province, 77th floor, /Heaven Pavilion. 3. Huang Jiuyo, Western Continent, 77th floor, Netherworld Clan. 4. It's True. 5. Snow Ice Condensation, East Province, 76th floor, Ice and Snow Dynasty. 6. Chu Qinkuan, North Province, 75th floor, Chu Heaven Family. With a glance, they were all from the East, West, and North provinces. The East Province had the most people on the rankings, followed by the North Province and the West Province. As for the Southern Continent where they were located, let alone within the first 100 people, the first 1,000 or the first 10,000 people. Only after more than 90,000 people could they see a few scattered people from the Southern Continent. Among them, the highest. Ranking was the peerless genius from the Mingyue family over 300 years ago, Mingyue Shui. The top 90,000 have not changed for thousands of years. As he spoke, the young man couldn't help but sigh. For thousands of years, there hasn't been a single person in our southern continent who could charge into the top 90,000. If this divine refining pagoda appeared in some of the other regions in our southern continent, it might be possible, but not within the Azure region. Among the southern continent's 100 regions, the Azure region wasn't ranked at the top, and it was even a bit lower. On the other hand, he didn't think that someone would be able to enter the top 90,000 in the Azure region. Even the peerless Heaven's Pride that was currently ranked first on the Azure rankings wouldn't be able to do so. Under the main list of the Stone Steel, there was also a secondary list. Unlike the main rankings, where there were 100,000 spots, there were only 1,000 secondary rankings. At present, there were no names on the secondary rankings. It was likely that the Divine Refining Pagoda had not been opened yet. This was the reason why no one had ascended the pagoda. The records on the secondary rankings were the records of those who ascended the pagoda during the period between the opening and closing of the Divine Refining Pagoda. Even though there were only 1,000 places, the rewards were still very generous. Perhaps they could not compare to the main rankings, but they still made the hearts of countless people stir. On the main rankings. Although the rewards for being on the main rankings were even more generous, most people's gazes were placed on the secondary rankings. Even though there was only a single word difference between the main rankings and the secondary rankings, the difficulty was obvious. In order to ascend the main rankings, one needed to compete with the heaven's proud demons that had ascended the Divine Refining Pagoda in the tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years that had passed. On the other hand, the secondary rankings were much easier to compare to. All they needed to do was compete with the people who had entered the Purple Moon's secret realm this time. Most of the people present were not interested in the main rankings because they knew that they had no chance of getting on it. During the thousands of years after Purple Moon had died, countless geniuses had ascended the Divine Refining Pagoda in the Azure region, and there was no lack of geniuses on the Azure ranking. However, only a few people were able to ascend the main ranking in the end. On the other hand, none of these people were geniuses among geniuses or monstrous geniuses. Even the proud geniuses of the Azure rankings were difficult to compare to. Those who didn't even have the upper ranking on the Azure ranking. Just thinking about it. Of course, not everyone was like this. Some of the top geniuses from the Heavenly Wind Kingdom and even the great powers of the 9 Hanging Rivers' various heavenly kingdoms were rather eager to try, and their eyes flickered with radiance. Their goals seemed not only to be their secondary rankings. Chapter 46. One of the Azure region's 10 major powers, the Bright Moon family. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 46. One of the Azure region's 10 major powers, the Bright Moon family. Big sister, these people don't know how high the heavens are and how thick the earth is. Especially that darn fatty. He's a mere sect disciple from a small country, yet he dared to say he will ascend the main rankings. He's truly laughable to death. Haha, under the Divine Refining Tower, 2 women were standing around a clear pool. The 2 women's faces were exceptional, and they looked like pearls. Her older sister was dressed in white like snow, and she looked rather aloof. As for her younger sister, she seemed to be around 15 or 16 years old, and she seemed rather naughty and cute. In the eyes of some ordinary people, apart from being pretty, the 2 women did not seem to be too outstanding. However, in the eyes of some nascent soul experts, the 2 women were much more mysterious. The reason for that was because they discovered that even though these sisters were young, their strength was extremely terrifying. That's right. It could be described as terrifying. The young girl, who was 15 or 16 years old, was actually at the 7th level of the soul condensation realm. This was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was her older sister. Nascent soul realm. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary nascent soul expert. She was at least at the peak of the 1st level of the nascent soul realm. That was a bit terrifying. One of them was 15 or 16 years old, at the 7th level of the soul condensation realm. A 20.3.4 year old at the peak of the first level of the nascent soul realm. Although they didn't know their origins, it was certain that geniuses of this level were definitely not from the 9 hanging kingdoms. A chosen this level probably came from a major power in Azure region. Mingyue Shu, Mingyue Lan, the 2 princesses of the Bright Moon family have actually appeared here. Although most of the people did not recognize the 2 women, there were still very few who knew them. As for these people, without exception, almost all of them came from outside the 9 kingdoms. However, even though they recognized the 2 women, almost all of them didn't make a sound. Instead, they merely muttered softly to themselves. It's rumored that the 2 women are both in closed-door cultivation within the Bright Moon family, preparing for the upcoming Azure region competition. I never expected that they would appear here. TSK, the Bright Moon aristocratic family of the Azure region is one of the top 10 giants. Moreover, their ranking among the top 10 giants was extremely high. It was well known that Azure region's 10 great figures all possessed king-level experts. On the other hand, the Bright Moon aristocratic family not only had one king-level figure, they had more than one. More than 100 years ago, the Bright Moon aristocratic family's Mingyue Shui had made progress and had successfully broken through to the king realm, and she had established the status of the Bright Moon aristocratic family amongst the 10 great powers of the Azure region in one go. After all, before Mingyue Shui broke through to the king realm, even though the Bright Moon aristocratic family was one of the top 10 powers and 10 giants of the Azure region, they were ranked last to the bottom of the top 10. Coupled with the fact that the 11th ranked Heavenly Star sect had grown stronger, they were gradually being replaced. As for Mingyue Shui's breakthrough, it had completely established the status of the Bright Moon family amongst the top 10 powers. It had directly caused the Bright Moon family to go from the bottom of the 10 giants to the top 5. Speaking of this Mingyue Shui, she was an extraordinary legendary figure. 300 years ago, she was the number 1 genius of the Bright Moon family. What was worth mentioning was that in the era that Mingyue Shui lived, even though her talent was monstrous, there were still quite a few people amongst the Azure region's younger generation who were even more monstrous than her. Not to mention anything else, Mingyue Shui was ranked on the Azure ranking at that time. However, she was merely ranked 11th, and could no longer take a step further. Those prodigies who were ranked above her were even more monstrous than her. Especially the person who was ranked first on the Azure rankings at that time. He was known as the person who had the most hope of advancing to the king realm. However, more than 100 years had passed. Those who died and those who didn't die were all stuck at the peak of the 9th level of the nascent soul realm, or even at half-step king realm. No matter what, they couldn't break through to the king realm. On the other hand, Mingyue Shui was the only person in their generation who had broken through to the king realm. It was worth mentioning that the 2 sisters of the Bright Moon family that had appeared here were from the clan Mingyue Shui, the ancestor of the Bright Moon family. This Mingyue Shu was also known as a genius who had hope of surpassing Mingyue Shui. She was only 20.3 or 20.4 years old and had already reached the peak of the first level of the nascent soul realm. It broke the record of the Bright Moon family's fastest cultivation at nascent soul. Her ranking on the Azure ranking had even reached 7th. Moreover, this might not be the limit of Mingyue Shu. If Mingyue Shu could successfully break through to the 2nd level of nascent soul, she would probably be heading for the top 5. As for Mingyue Shu's younger sister Mingyue Lan, her talent was slightly inferior compared to her older sisters. However, she was also an extremely monstrous genius. She was only 15 or 16 years old and was at the 7th level of the soul condensation realm. Her future was immeasurable. Xiao Lan, your temper needs to be changed. There is nothing absolute about everything. There may be geniuses in small places. Duan Changkong is the best example. Duan Changkong was currently ranked 3rd on the Azure rankings. Mingyue Shu had once challenged him, but she was defeated in just 3 moves. That battle had Mingyue Shu completely defeated. There was even a feeling that even if she broke through to the second level of nascent soul, she might not be a match for Duan Changkong. Each of the top 3 on the Azure ranking was an extremely monstrous existence. As for Duan Changkong, he was different from the people from the great powers. In the beginning, he was only from one of the Azure region's small kingdoms. But now, he was 3rd on the Azure ranking. A while ago he joined the Crimson Heaven Sword Sect, one of the top 10 giants of the Azure region, and had become the holy son of the Crimson Heaven Sword Sect. How can they compare to Duan Changkong? Mingyue Lan pouted. Why can't we compare them? If you don't change your temper, you'll be at a disadvantage sooner or later. Mingyue Shu fondly pinched Mingyue Lan's butterfly-like nose. In any case, I don't think that there are people here who can ascend the main rankings. The only ones who can ascend the main rankings are my sister and me. As for them, they can't. As the 2 of them spoke, a commotion came from the surroundings. The Divine Refining Tower has opened. Everyone's eyes looked over. As expected, under the Divine Refining Tower, 8 gates opened at the same time. These were the entrances to the tower. Many people swarmed in. However, most of them did not move. The Divine Refining Tower could be opened for 1 day. During that day, it was fine to ascend the tower at any time. The Divine Refining Tower wouldn't give you any special rewards just because you ascended the tower earlier. The conclusion of the Divine Refining Tower stone steel was to wait until the Divine Refining Tower was completely closed. Therefore, there was no need to rush in. Meanwhile, they could adjust their mental and physical states. When they adjusted their state, they would do their best. That was the best choice. There was only one chance to ascend the tower. Once they were eliminated, they could no longer enter. Chapter 47. They could be cheating. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 47. They could be cheating. On Xian Yi's side, the 5 of them weren't in a hurry. On the other hand, the young man who had been trying to talk to Lin Jin was somewhat eager to give it a try. It had been him who had been talking. Lin Jin, she only nodded occasionally. She had no interest in continuing her conversation with him. Lin Jin naturally knew of his thoughts, but Lin Jin didn't have any intentions towards him. Lin Jin was a relatively cold person. She would not treat the brocade young man with a whole new level of respect or anything just because he told them something. The reason for that was because the brocade young man had taken the initiative. Even if he did not say anything about this, her master would have told them. In the eyes of the brocade youth, that was not the case. In his opinion, the reason why Lin Jin didn't want to pay attention to him was that she didn't know how outstanding he was. After he revealed his talent, Lin Jin would see him in a new light. As for how to display his talent, it did not seem that deliberate. The answer was simple. The Divine Refining Pagoda. If he could leave his name on the secondary rankings of the Divine Refining Tower, then Lin Jin, she would have a whole new level of respect for him. All of the time passed, and it was time to bring a beauty home. After he cupped his hands towards Lin Jin and the others, the brocaded young man stepped into the Divine Refining Tower. Senior Sister Jin, your charm is great. This Chen Feng is a core student of the Tianfeng Imperial Academy. His master is the vice president of the Tianfeng Imperial Academy, a prominent figure among the younger generation of the Tianfeng Kingdom. Senior Sister Jin, you're a genius. LV Ying said with envy. TL, her name is now LV, not Lu, Lin Jin chuckled, not saying anything. After LV Ying revealed Chen Feng's background, nothing changed. Countless people rushed into the Divine Refining Tower. Numerous names began to appear on the blank stone steel's secondary list. Soon, the 1,000 spots were filled. However, in the beginning, there was not a single spot that could be maintained. In less than a second, the person ranked first was replaced by others. It was only after nearly half an hour had passed that the rankings on the Stone Steel's secondary ranking changed less frequently. At this moment, the person who was ranked first was a man named Feng Qingming. He was from the Profound Blue Sect, one of the 10 great powers in the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. He was the son of the sect master of the Profound Blue Sect. He had fought against the third prince before, but unfortunately, he in the end was defeated. However, that was already a year ago. It was said that after losing to the third prince, Feng Qingming went into closed-door cultivation. It was unknown whether he was qualified to challenge the third prince again. At this moment, Feng Qingming was ranked first on the secondary rankings. As for the number of floors he had ascended, it was the 30.7th. Feng Qingming is indeed worthy of being known as the person who has the most hope of competing with the third prince. In less than half an hour, he has already reached the 37th floor. Judging from his speed, it's obvious that's not his limit. Unfortunately, the third prince isn't here. I want to see who will rise to the next level. That's amazing. The young master of the Profound Blue Sect is not just a fish in the pond. The vast majority of the people present were from the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. Therefore, there were naturally quite a few who knew Feng Qingming. All sorts of praises were heard, making some of the people from the Profound Blue Sect extremely proud. Pah! Trash! I've had enough of these frogs at the bottom of the well. It's only the 37th floor. What's there to be proud of? No, I can't help it anymore. Big sister, I'm going to climb the tower. I'm going to slap these frogs at the bottom of the well. Mingyue Lan's face was filled with anger. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a lotus step and directly stepped into the divine refining tower. Mingyue Shu did not stop her. Mingyue Lan's actions did not attract many people's attention. On the other hand, the pupils of some people narrowed slightly. These people knew Mingyue Shu and Mingyue Lan. There will be a good show to watch. Mingyue Lan, although her talent is slightly inferior to that of the Mingyue Shu, she also possesses the ability to challenge the main rankings. Her talent may not be inferior to what Mingyue Shu had back then. What Feng Qingming? He's just a small kingdom's young master. How could he compare to the second genius of the Bright Moon family? It won't be long before she becomes the first. Xian Yi, his eyes narrowed slightly. With his strength, he naturally noticed Mingyue Shu and Mingyue Lan. Especially Mingyue Shu. This was still like Xian Yi, the younger generation, that he had seen the smallest difference between their cultivation levels. Peak first level nascent soul. TSK. Things were just as those few people had expected. Not long after Mingyue Lan stepped into the divine refining tower, in less than 10 minutes, her name had already appeared 10 times on the secondary ranking stele. Her speed was as fast as a rocket, and she had yet to stop. This meant that every single layer of the Mingyue Lan had been able to crush and instantly deal with the opponent. 300. 100. 80. 50. 13. 5. Mingyue Lan's ranking was rising too fast. It was hard for anybody to ignore her. What is that? Mingyue Lan. Who is that? This. Did she cheat? That's fast. Idiot, can someone cheat in the divine refining tower? Countless people were dumbfounded. Earlier, Feng Qingming's speed of ascending the tower was already very fast. However, this person called Mingyue Lan was no longer that simple. It was like cheating. Mingyue Lan. Bright Moon. Could it be someone from the Bright Moon family? Mingyue means Bright Moon, some people quickly reacted. They didn't know Mingyue Lan, but the name of the Bright Moon family resounded like thunder, one of the Azure region's 10 great powers. On the main list, the person ranked the highest among the Azure region, Mingyue Shui, was from the Bright Moon aristocratic family. If it's someone of the Bright Moon family, then that wouldn't be strange. While some people were shocked in their hearts, their gazes were fixed on the words, Mingyu Lan. Everyone wanted to know exactly where this Mingyu Lan could go. 30.7 levels. 30.8 levels. 30.9 levels. She directly surpassed Feng Qingming, who was still struggling on the 30.9th floor. Moreover, Mingyu Lan's speed didn't slow down at all. 40.3, 40.4. 40.5, everyone felt numb in their hearts. This was a chosen from Bright Moon aristocratic families. With such ease, she had surpassed the 40.5th level record set by the ruler of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. 46, after knowing that the Mingyu Lan's soaring speed had finally slowed down, the rising speed continued. She's only 5 levels away. She'll be able to enter the main rankings. This trip to the Purple Moon secret realm isn't a waste. It can be said that we will witness history. Nobody could remember how long it had been since someone had ascended to the main rankings. However, it was certain that there had never been anyone on the main rankings when the Purple Moon secret realm had been opened in the past few times. The closest one only seemed to reach level 47. Today, judging from the momentum of that Mingyu Lan, it was likely that it would not a problem for her to enter the main rankings. It was just that one didn't know how many people could reach the main rankings in the end. Could she surpass her ancestor, Mingyu Shui? It is said that this Mingyu Lan is not the number one genius among the younger generation of the Bright Moon family. The number one person among the younger generation of the Bright Moon family is her elder sister. Mingyu Shu, I wonder if her elder sister has come here today. Mingyu Shu. That peerless genius ranked 7th place on the Azure ranking. It is said that her talent has even surpassed her ancestors, Mingyu Shui. Although they had never seen Mingyu Shu, many people had heard of Mingyu Shu's famous name. 7th on the Azure ranking, the only woman among the top 10 on the Azure ranking. Mingyu Shu didn't care about the surrounding people's discussion. Her beautiful eyes were also staring at her sister Mingyu Lan's ranking. She was also curious. This younger sister that wasn't much inferior to her, how far could she go in the end? 50 levels. When Mingyu Lan reached the 50th floor, her speed finally slowed down. At this moment, Mingyu Lan was still 2 battles away from ascending the main rankings. When they arrived at the 50.1st level, Mingyu Lan would experience 2 battles. The first was a battle that came from the Divine Refining Tower itself and had to go through to the 50.1st level. The second time was to fight against the projection of the last person on the main list. The Divine Refining Tower would restrict the higher realms. For example, the challenger was at the peak of the 8th level of the Spirit Severing Realm, then the projection strength would be at the peak of the 8th level of the Spirit Severing Realm. If the other party's cultivation level was lower than Mingyu Lan's, then Mingyu Lan's cultivation level would be reduced. In this battle, the victor would replace the opponent's position on the main rankings, and defeat would result in a final result of 51 levels. However, they would not enter the main rankings. The 50.1st level. When the 50.1st floor of the Divine Refining Tower lit up, everyone took a deep breath. Perhaps they also hoped to witness history with their own eyes. Thus, they also hoped that Mingyu Lan would create history today, ascend the main rankings, and even surpass her ancestral Mingyu Shui. The waiting time was extremely long. Another 20 minutes had passed, and Feng Qingming had already emerged from the Divine Refining Tower. The 50.2nd floor hadn't lit up. This meant that the Mingyu Lan was still fighting. After Feng Qingming walked out of the Divine Refining Tower, he was somewhat disappointed. He had thought that he might be able to challenge the Heavenly Wind Sovereign King's record back then, but the truth proved that he was overthinking things. The final result was the 41st level. There was still an entire 5 levels away from the 46th level that the Heavenly Wind Sovereign King had set back then. Thus, if he hadn't truly ascended the Divine Refining Tower, he wouldn't know how difficult it would be to ascend each level after the 30 levels. On the 40th floor, Feng Qingming seemed to be able to handle it with ease. However, after reaching the 41st level, he was instantly killed. Feng Qingming didn't even have the time to react. The Tower Guardian was too powerful. He was so strong that he could not even resist. It was hard for Feng Qingming to imagine that the 41st floor would be so difficult. What kind of monster were those who had ascended the 45th, 50th, or even the 70th floors? To be honest, before he ascended the tower, Feng Qingming looked down on the sovereign king Tianfeng. The mighty sovereign king Heavenly Wind, a legendary figure who had dominated so many prodigies all those years ago, had only reached the 46th floor of the divine refining tower, unable to even enter the main rankings. But now, he no longer dared to think that way. Not only did he not look down on the Heavenly Wind Kingdom in his heart, he even felt a bit of admiration. It wasn't that the sovereign king Tianfeng was not a monster. The people who had ascended the divine refining tower for tens of thousands of years were simply too monstrous. In the 41st level battle, Feng Qingming was completely convinced. When he walked out, Feng Qingming realized that no one was paying attention to him. Everyone's eyes were almost on the top of the divine refining tower. Feng Qingming also looked at the divine refining tower. The next scene stunned him. The 51st floor was actually bright. Feng Qingming frowned. His gaze quickly turned to the deputy leaderboard. As expected, the person who was ranked first wasn't him. It was a person named Mingyue Lan. A woman. This time, Feng Qingming was stunned. Although he had only reached the 40th level, Feng Qingming was still very confident in his ranking on the secondary ranking. However, the result had greatly exceeded his expectations. What shocked Feng Qingming, even more, was not Mingyue Lan's ranking on the secondary ranking, but rather the number of layers Mingyue Lan climbed. Mingyue Lan, Southern Continent, 51st floor, Bright Moon aristocratic family. 50th level. How is that possible? Feng Qingming's level was 40.1. That was why he was so shocked. It was because he was more aware of the difficulty of each level after 40 levels than those who had never ascended the divine refining tower. Bright Moon family, seeing this suffix, Feng Qingming suddenly became less difficult to accept. The Bright Moon aristocratic family. He knew. One of the Azure region's 10 giants, a giant that possessed a king realm expert. On the main list, the one who had set the ranking of the 50th level in the southern continent was an ancestor from the Bright Moon family, Mingyue Shui. 50.2 levels. She's up. The 52nd floor lit up. Wait, it's been extinguished again. Under everyone's attention, the 51st floor lamp was extinguished. The 52nd floor lit up. However, after less than a breath of light, it was destroyed again. Look. The leaderboard has changed. Everyone looked over. Sure enough, the last person on the main rankings was originally a genius from the northern continent. Now that his name had dimmed, it was quickly replaced by the word Mingyue Lan. 100,000. She barely managed to squeeze into the main rankings. The moment she entered the 52nd floor, the lights were extinguished. The situation was the same as when Feng Qingming reached the 41st level. This meant that Mingyue Lan and Feng Qingming had been killed in an instant when they entered the next floor. What? That's not right. A somewhat ashen-faced little girl slowly walked out of the divine refining tower, her face filled with resentment. She was not very satisfied with her results. Chapter 48. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 48. It's already pretty good. When Mingyue Lan arrived in front of Mingyue Shu patted her sister's shoulder and comforted her. That person must be Mingyue Shu. She came. I am looking forward to Mingyue Shu's performance. It said that her talent is greater than her ancestor, Mingyue Shui of the Bright Moon family. Perhaps today, we will be able to witness history. The highest record in the southern continent is maintained by the ancestors of the Bright Moon family. Today, I wonder if Mingyue Shu can break this record. Looking at the towering divine refining tower, especially when Mingyue Lan's results appeared, Lin Jin seemed even more eager to give it a try. She wanted to know what level she could reach with her current self. If it was the previous Lin Jin, she might not have had too much hope. But now, she had already comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent, and her combat strength had skyrocketed by an unknown amount. It might be a bit difficult for her to enter the main rankings, but it might be possible for her to compete for the secondary rankings. Look, Chen Feng from the Royal Academy of Heavenly Wind has come out. LV Ying suddenly said. Previously, they had paid too much attention to Feng Qingming and Mingyue Lan, so much so that they almost forgot about Chen Feng as a genius. This was something that could not be helped. Although Chen Feng had some talent, compared to Feng Qingming and even Mingyue Lan, he was much weaker. Therefore, even if he came out, not many people paid attention to him at this moment. Even if he had ascended the secondary rankings, and his ranking on the secondary rankings wasn't bad. The 30.7th floor, the 30.1st of the secondary rankings. This result is pretty good. Indeed. The current secondary rankings was different from an hour ago. The current secondary rankings were of great quality. More than half of the people present had already entered the Divine Refining Tower. Chen Feng, who had walked out of the Divine Refining Tower, was extremely satisfied with his results. When he saw that he was ranked 30.1st on the secondary rankings, he was even more complacent. When he walked towards Xian Yi's group, his expression carried a hint of arrogance. It was as if he was speaking. This time around, I'm finally qualified to meet you, right? However, it had to be said. He was ranked 30.1st. This result was indeed enough to be arrogant. After all, the people present were not only from the Heavenly Wind Kingdom but from the other 9 Hanging Rivers kingdoms as well. Being able to rank in the top 50 among so many geniuses was already an amazing thing. However, what disappointed Chen Feng was Lin Jin's attention didn't seem to be on him. Ever since he stepped out of the Divine Refining Tower, her gaze had never shifted to him. This inevitably caused Chen Feng to feel a little irritated and even a little angry. This woman was a bit too ignorant. He was a dignified core disciple of the Imperial Sky Wind Academy, was he not even qualified to be recognized by her? Since you want to go, then go. Seeing Lin Jin somewhat eager to give it a try, Xian Yi laughed. Yes. After receiving Xian Yi's agreement, Lin Jin took a deep breath and entered the Divine Refining Tower. I'd like to see how talented you are. How many levels can you climb? Chen Feng's expression was ugly, and he was extremely displeased. However, this feeling of displeasure in Chen Feng's heart was quickly replaced by shock. The reason for that was because the moment that Lin Jin had entered the Divine Refining Tower, her name immediately appeared on the list. Moreover, it was currently rising at an extremely shocking speed. This speed was even more exaggerated than Mingyue Lan's. This was not out of Xian Yi's scope. It wasn't that Lin Jin was even more terrifying than Mingyue Lan. It was because Lin Jin was a sword cultivator. Sword cultivators were known for their powerful attacks. Lin Jin wasn't an ordinary sword cultivator. She was a sword cultivator who had comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent. Her speed of climbing the tower was extremely normal. She's so fast. She's even faster than that monster from the Bright Moon family. Who is this woman? Lin Jin, I've never heard of it before. What sect is the Profound Sword Sect? Does the Heavenly Wind Kingdom have such a sect? Are you ignorant? The Heavenly Wind Kingdom has such a sect. It's just that this sect isn't the largest. It's just a second-rate sect in the Jinan province. Its sect master is only at the peak of the second level of the nascent soul realm. TSK, how could such a small sect be able to nurture such a genius? I'm afraid she's going to charge into the top 10 of the secondary rankings. She's a genius. At that time, let's see if we can rope her into the devil-subduing sect. It would be a bit of a waste to stay in a small place like the Jinan province. The crowd began to discuss spiritedly. This was the first time that the profound sword sect's name had entered the public domain. Xian Yi's group was not far away. Chen Feng's face turned red. The reason for that was because, at this moment, Lin Jian's ranking on the secondary rankings had already surpassed his. She had reached the 20th place and was still rising. He didn't continue to stay there and left dejectedly. Earlier, he had thought that Lin Jian was merely a woman from a small sect. After showing a bit of talent, it would be easy to woo her. Now it seemed. He ignored Chen Feng who had left. Or perhaps, from the beginning, Xian Yi had never taken him to heart. Xian Yi stared at the divine refining tower. Even though he didn't have a high opinion of Lin Jian and believed that she wouldn't be able to enter the main rankings, Xian Yi still hoped that Lin Jian would give him a pleasant surprise. After all, Lin Jian's comprehension of the sword Dao exceeded Xian Yi's expectations. This woman was a good seedling of the sword. Although her talent might not be as good as Guiyi, if she could walk further along the path of the sword Dao, her future accomplishments might not be inferior to Guiyi. 40 levels. At this moment, Lin Jian had already reached 3rd place on the secondary rankings. Everyone held their breaths. This Lin Jian had shocked them quite a bit ever since they ascended the tower. She had originally thought that the top 10 were her limits. But now, she had already reached 3rd place. Second only to Feng Qinming. Who was Feng Qinming? The top 3 chosen of the previous generation of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. It was not strange that he could ascend beyond the 40th floor. But Lin Jian. Nobody had ever heard of her. However, it was this person, that they had never even heard of before, who had ascended to the 40th floor. She's charging up. 41st level. Hiss, Feng Qinming was also speechless. At this moment, his ranking on the secondary rankings had already fallen to 3rd place. Under the pressure of the Mingyuelan, he could accept it. After all, the other party was from a great power and a chosen on the Azure ranking. He admitted that he was inferior to the other party. But this Lin Jian. Where did she come from? Not done yet. 40.2 levels. 40.3 levels. 40.4, 40.5. It's equal to the Emperor's record back then. It should be at her limit. Xian Yi muttered to himself. 40.8, 40.9. 50. The 50th floor. Under the divine refining tower, it was boiling. This was something even the Heavenly Wind Sovereign King could not do. This was done by a nobody who had never been heard of before. Lin Jian. Who was she? When Mingyuelan had ascended to the 50th floor, everyone might have been shocked, but they also felt that it was natural. After all, she was a demon-level genius from one of the Azure region's top powers. Although it was shocking, it seemed to be within reason. But who was Lin Jian? What kind of power was the profound sword sect behind her? BL.net. Chapter 49. Breakthrough. Peak 2nd level sword intent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 49. Breakthrough. Peak 2nd level sword intent. According to some people around them, it seemed that she was only a disciple of a small sect in a province of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. Mingyuelan was also a bit surprised. She knew how difficult the 50th floor was. Originally, she thought that other than her sister, no one else would be able to reach the 50th floor after the opening of the divine refining tower, but how long had it been? She was slapped in the face. 50th level. At this moment, the lights on the 50th floor and the 50th level lit up. 50th level. Tied with Mingyuelan. Even though Mingyue Lan had ascended to the 50.2nd level, hadn't passed it. Thus, her record was 50.1 floors. Next, if Lin Jin were able to defeat the gatekeeper on the 50.1st level, then she would be against Mingyue Lan's projection. If she won, Lin Jin would enter the main rankings and kick Mingyue Lan out. If she was defeated, Mingyue Lan would remain on the main rankings. Lin Jin's record was also on the 51st level, but she will now be on the main list because she was unable to defeat Mingyue Lan's projection. I never expected that there would be such a genius in this corner. Mingyue Shu was also a little surprised. She knew about her sister's talent and strength. It was because she knew of her sister's strength that she was this surprised. First, the origins of the two were completely incomparable. Mingyue Lan had never lacked any cultivation resources since she was young. In the eyes of countless people, the precious high-grade medicinal pills were no different from candy in her eyes. Apart from that, there were also the teachings of Mighty King. Level figures. The combination of many factors had created the current Mingyue Lan. On the other hand, Laner, this time, do you know what it means to have people outside the world? In addition to being shocked, Mingyue Shu did not forget to educate her naughty and arrogant sister. Soon, another commotion came from the crowd. It turned out that the lights on the 51st floor had been extinguished. The lights on the 52nd floor did not light up. This meant that in the end, Lin Jin had not passed the 51st level and ascended the main rankings. It's alright. I'm fine. Mingyue Lan patted her chest and spat at Mingyue Shu. Lin Jin came out of the divine refining tower. At this moment, practically everyone's gazes were focused on her. Quite a few people were already thinking of roping her in. I'm the Vice-Sect Master of the True Martial Sect. Are you willing to join the True Martial Sect? I will take you as my disciple instead of my sect master. A third-level nascent soul elder took the lead. The True Martial Sect. One of the 10 great powers of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. Little girl, don't listen to him. The True Martial Sect is nothing. Come to my Flower Transfer Palace. I'm the Grand Elder of the Flower Transfer Palace. Most of my Flower Transfer Palace's disciples are female disciples, which is more suitable for you. If you wish, this old woman will take you as her disciple. The Flower Transfer Palace was another top power in the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. Like the True Martial Sect, it was one of the top 10 sects in the Heavenly Wind Kingdom, but its ranking was much higher than the True Martial Sect. In the 10 great powers of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom, the True Martial Sect could only rank in the lower reaches, while the Flower Transfer Palace could rank in the top 3. 10,000 Snow Pavilion. At this moment, it wasn't just the Heavenly Wind Kingdom's local sects. Even some of the powers outside of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom had thrown an olive branch to Lin Jin. Thank you, seniors, for thinking highly of this junior, but this junior already has a master. Furthermore, I don't have the intention of changing my sect. Lin Jin's rejection was very straightforward. After refusing, she immediately returned to Xian Yi's side. No matter what these people said, no matter what conditions they made, she remained indifferent. The crowd didn't associate Xian Yi with the master Lin Jin mentioned. Instead, they treated Xian Yi as a fellow disciple of the same sect. It couldn't be helped. Xian Yi looked a little too young. When the Grand Elder from the Flower Transfer Palace saw this, she sighed and said, with your talent, staying in that profound sword sect is completely humiliating to your potential. This old woman won't force you. If you want to come, the Flower Transfer Palace will welcome you at any time. This old woman was quite easy to talk to. Seeing that Lin Jin had simply refused, she didn't force her. Master, who is this? After Lin Jin returned to Xian Yi's side, she suddenly discovered that a young woman was standing on the other side of his master. She wasn't very old, much younger than her, and she had a beautiful appearance. She wore the profound sword sect school clothes. However, Lin Jin did not know her. Guei, I greet Senior Sister Jean. This woman was none other than Guei. Not long after Lin Jin ascended the tower, she arrived. You're the disciple that Master just accepted not long ago. Guei, Junior Sister Yi. Lin Jin had never seen Guei, but she knew this person. Before they set off for the Purple Moon secret realm, many people from the sect had already told them that their master Xian Yi had accepted another female disciple named Guei. On the way to Sword in Tent Peak leaving the Divine Refining Tower, Master had also mentioned it to her. After chatting with Guei for a while, Lin Jin suddenly remembered something. She took out a water-blue spirit herb from his bosom and handed it to Guei. Junior apprentice. Sister, this is one of the rewards I obtained from ascending to the 40th level of the Divine Refining Tower. I heard from our master that you really need it, so consider it a gift from your senior apprentice. Sister. Looking at the water-blue spirit herb in Lin Jin's hand that emitted a faint coldness, Xian Yi's pupils slightly narrowed. Ice Spirit Grass. This was the Ice Spirit Grass that he had been searching for. Ice Spirit Grass was a 4th rank spirit herb. Although it wasn't very precious among the 4th rank spirit herbs, it was extremely rare. With this Ice Spirit Grass, then the Guei Ice Spirit Body could be activated. Take it. Thank you, Senior Sister. Xian Yi's words dispelled the hesitation in Guei's heart. As she was moved, she deeply remembered her senior sister's kindness. Take it. Guei did not hesitate when he heard this. She swallowed the Ice Spirit Grass in her hand. If the cold ice body wanted to activate it, it naturally wouldn't just be able to swallow the Ice Spirit Grass. However, all Guei needed to do was consume the Ice Spirit Grass. Leave the rest to Xian Yi. Condensation. With a word, Xian Yi slowly closed his eyes. A gentle power gathered between Guei's brows before slowly entering Guei's body. Afterward, Xian Yi began to control that power and help Guei refine the medicinal power within the Ice Spirit Grass. The entire process was not long. 2 minutes later, Xian Yi opened his eyes and let out a deep breath. Although it was only a short 2 minutes, the difficulty was extremely great. If there was a slight mistake, all of his previous efforts would be wasted. At that time, not only would the cold ice body not be able to activate, Guei herself might also suffer a backlash. The activation of the cold ice body did not change Guei's cultivation base. It was still at the 5th level of qi condensation. Of course, this was only on the surface. His cultivation base hadn't changed, but her strength had already undergone a tremendous change. Originally, Guei, at the 5th level of qi condensation could and would fight against the Qi. Foundation realm expert. As for the Qi. Foundation realm that she was referring to, it was merely some ordinary 1st and 2nd Qi. Foundation realm experts. No matter how high it was, Guei would no longer be a match for someone stronger. But now, even when faced with a high-level Qi. Foundation realm expert, Guei might be able to fight them due to her cold ice body. This was not an exaggeration at all. The cold ice body was terrifying. There was also a gap between spiritual bodies. The Guei ice physique was undoubtedly much stronger than the Heavenly Wind Kingdom's 3rd prince's spirit physique. Ding! After completing the side mission, you have received a reward. There has been an increase in the host's cultivation and the host has comprehended the peak of the 2nd level of Sword Intent. Chapter 50. Another from the Profound Sword Sect. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 50. Another from the Profound Sword Sect. After activating the cold ice body, Guei's aptitude had reached 288 points. She directly helped Xian Yi complete his side mission. Compared to before, Guei had already undergone an earth-shaking transformation. Before activating the cold ice body, Guei's innate talent was 197 points, but the 197 points did not belong to her. Instead, they belonged to the dormant cold ice body. The number of talent points that belonged to Guei was probably only a few dozen. It was even inferior to Lin Jin. If it wasn't for that, Guei wouldn't have been 17 or 18 years old. She was only at the fourth stage of qi condensation. Now, after the ice body was activated, that terrifying 288 points of talent truly belonged to her. After receiving the reward, Xian Yi's cultivation had risen from the original third level of the nascent soul realm to the fourth level of the nascent soul realm. His comprehension of sword intent had also risen from the peak of the first level to the peak of the second. Regardless of whether it was his cultivation level or his battle prowess, he had obtained an enormous increase. I wonder what level of cultivation my current strength is equivalent to. The 7th level nascent soul. It wasn't just that. The 8th level nascent soul. Or perhaps the 9th level nascent soul. Xian Yi didn't know that, but only after a battle with someone of that level would he truly know. However, he was certain that with his current strength, he was unmatched in the Heavenly Wind Kingdom. After all, the ancestor of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom was only at the peak of the 7th level of nascent soul. Ding, side mission triggered. Guei must participate in the Azure Regions competition and win the top 10,000 ranks in the Azure Regions competition. Reward: an increase in 2 realms. And the comprehension of Void Sword Domain. After completing the side mission, a new mission was triggered. There were still 2 rewards. Xian Yi didn't care much about the first one, raising 2 levels. However, the second reward caused Xian Yi's heart to move. Void Sword Domain. Xian Yi's heart trembled. Among these 3 words, the first 2 words were not the main point. The main point was the third word, domain. Domain. This was a terrifying ability that only King Realm experts were qualified to comprehend. Nav Om domain power. Moreover, not all King Realm experts were able to comprehend their domains. In reality, most of the King Realm experts did not comprehend their domains. As for the King Realm experts who had comprehended the domain, their strength was far more powerful than the King Realm experts who had not comprehended the domain. Once the domain was unleashed, ordinary experts at the same level wouldn't necessarily be able to raise their hands. This side mission must be completed. This time, the side mission that was triggered was extremely difficult. Xian Yi knew that it was a gathering of the younger generations of the Azure Region's countless monstrous geniuses. It was because the rewards of the Azure Region's grand competition were simply too generous. Thus, when that time came, some hidden geniuses would also appear. This competition was much more intense than the Azure ranking. Everyone knew that the Azure ranking didn't mean anything. Many geniuses that didn't care about fame and fortune simply didn't want to compete for the rankings of the Azure ranking. However, the Azure Region's competition was different. A generous reward was enough to tempt any genius. It was because of this that Xian Yi's side mission became extremely difficult. Although Guei had activated her cold ice body, her strength was comparable to a high Qi Foundation realm cultivator. But she was far from competing for the top 10,000 in the Azure region. Difficult. However, the difficulty did not mean that it was impossible. The Void Sword Domain. Once he obtained the Void Sword Domain, even if he wasn't at the King Realm, he might be able to fight against a King Realm expert. Even now, Xian Yi was very powerful, at the peak of the 2nd level of sword intent. However, even at the peak of the 9th level of nascent soul, it would be difficult for Xian Yi to fight a King Realm expert. The difference between the nascent soul realm and the King Realm was simply too great. Only by mastering the Void Sword Domain would this impossible become possible. Therefore, he absolutely could not miss this reward. Mingyue Shu has moved. Is she going to ascend the tower? The main event has finally arrived. The crowd was once again filled with noise. It turned out that the Mingyue Shu beside the Mingyue Lan had moved. Mingyue Shu, 7th on the Azure ranking. What level can she reach? As for the stone tablet, the main list is certain. After all, she is the #1 genius of the Bright Moon family's younger generation. Her talent is even greater than her younger sister, the Mingyue Lan. No one doubted whether Mingyue Shu would be able to ascend the main rankings. Even her younger sister would be able to do so. How could the more monstrous Mingyue Shu not be able? Right now, the people were concerned about the Mingyue Shu. In the end, how many levels could she climb? Could she surpass the ancestor of their Bright Moon family, Mingyue Shui, and create a new record in the southern continent? Go as well. Xian Yi slowly spoke and said to Guo Yi. If it was before, Xian Yi didn't hold hope for Guo Yi. Although Guo Yi's aptitude was above Lin Jin's, if she hadn't activated her cold ice body, she might not have been able to reach a higher level than Lin Jin. Without the cold ice body, Guo Yi had no advantage over Lin Jin. On the other hand, Lin Jin had quite an advantage. That was because Lin Jin's comprehension of the embryonic form of sword intent was above Guo Yi's. But it was different now. Now, Guo Yi, who had activated the cold ice body, would be able to ascend the main rankings. Moreover, it wasn't just that simple. Of course, Xian Yi could not predict exactly how many levels she would be able to reach and how many places she would climb in the main rankings. Yes, master. After nodding her head, Guo Yi glanced at the Mingyue Shu that was also walking towards the divine refining tower, and took a step forward. Compared to the Mingyue Shu, Guo Yi did not attract much attention when she entered the tower. After all, the current Guo Yi was merely a nameless pawn. How could she compare to that peerless genius who had shaken the Azure region and ranked 7th on the Azure ranking? However, this situation did not last for too long. After a while, Guo Yi's name appeared on the secondary rankings. If it was just this, it would not be worthy of attention. The reason why everyone was paying attention was that Guo Yi's name rose on the sub-rank as fast as Mingyue Shu. When the name of the Mingyue Shu appeared in more than 800 places on the secondary rankings, Guo Yi followed closely behind. At first, the crowd didn't care too much. However, as Mingyue Shu arrived in the top 10 of the Vice. List, Guo Yi followed closely behind her. This was something that had to be taken seriously. Especially when they saw the words, Profound Sword Sect, behind Guo Yi's name, the crowd became even more agitated. Profound Sword Sect. If I remember correctly, Lin Jin, who had almost ascended the main rankings earlier, also came from a sect called the Profound Sword Sect, right? What? Profound Sword Sect. What exactly is this Profound Sword Sect? It was able to cultivate a genius of this level. One might be a coincidence, but two of them were not as simple as a coincidence. Two prodigies appeared in succession. This was something that even the top powers of the Heavenly Wind Kingdom could not do.